go. What's going on, guys? It is Illumignostic, and tonight we have something really important, actually a lot of really important things to discuss. I'm going to have to be a little bit careful because there's already been a lot of censorship around this issue, which means that your attention should probably be on it. I know Peterson did an interview with the subject of our discussion tonight. I almost don't even want to say his name, but it's already been taken down by YouTube for dangerous misinformation, apparently. And I've done quite a bit of research today and yesterday, and I have not been able to confirm the presence of this misinformation. In fact, all I can find is information that is derived from universally approved sources like Johns Hopkins, which is actually the standard for medical consensus, generally speaking, from the CDC. So, you know, I'm not sure exactly what this misinformation is supposed to be. Yes, and thank you guys for hitting the like button. I don't want to get into it at the moment, but it has not been an easy month, man. Just about every single one of our sources of income went sideways. I had to threaten legal action to get Etsy's to release our money, and it's just been absolutely ridiculous. So we definitely appreciate your support at the moment, especially because I'm out here putting my ass on the line trying to talk about subjects like this. And there's a couple of things that I think we really should put under the microscope right off the bat. And one of those things is that my hairdresser doesn't speak English, and I apparently miscommunicated, and that's why I have no beard at the moment. But in other news, you got to think about what Robert Kennedy Jr., is that his name? Robert Kennedy Jr. is putting on the line here. What this guy believes, whether it is true or not, about his father, his cousin, possibly, and his uncle all being assassinated for taking on the exact people that he is taking on. This man is rich. He could retire quietly. He does not need to do this. And that is one of the main areas, I guess, that prompt suspicion of the attacks on this guy and his credibility. What is his motivation? What is his motivation? There's no profit here for him to make. There's, you know, the only thing that he could gain is that he will likely be assassinated if he continues doing what he's doing, right? And whether it's true or not that, you know, his father was assassinated by the government and his uncle was assassinated by the government, and a lot of people think that the plane that went down carrying JFK's son was sabotaged. You know, I don't think there's any solid evidence of that, but, you know, they kill Kennedys, man. They definitely kill Kennedys. I'm convinced of that. I'm sure he is as well, right? But he is still willing to put his life on the line to try to, you know, expose these people and uncover the truth. And in my searching through all of these articles, calling him a dangerous conspiracy theorist and, you know, misinformation campaign and all of this stuff that they're saying, that, you know, he's man, I wish I could remember the wording of this. People magazine, it was insane. It absolutely was insane. I have never seen more obvious propaganda in my entire life. Like, how is it that every single source is putting the exact same labels on him? It's exactly the same narrative, whether you're talking about MSNBC, People magazine, everywhere you look, it's the same terms, the same descriptions, the same narrative being blared from every loudspeaker completely identically. It's obviously a smear campaign, and it's obviously propaganda. Who is putting these words in the mouth of the press so that they're all identical? Who is doing that? And what is their motivation? You know what I mean? There are certain companies, right, that I'm not going to name, that made $1 billion, excuse me, $1,000 a second off a certain something that I'm not going to name. There were 40 more billionaires created by a certain thing that I'm not going to name, right? Because seriously, I'm not trying to get deleted over this. You know what I mean? And it's crazy that I have to do that, right? And then let's see, what is another? Oh yeah, $100 billion from one of them alone. Okay, so if you look at the fact that we have this unprecedented concentration of wealth, so we have very few people involved, which is the first requirement for any successful conspiracy, that there are not a lot of people involved. You can establish the cui bono, who benefits, very easily, right? And it would be everyone that was involved with that thing that I can't mention and big tech. You know what I mean? It's just so insanely obvious at this point. And it's, you know, it's pretty crazy how much I have to choke down and that I'm actually afraid to say on this app. It's insane, man. And that is one of the things that this guy Robert Kennedy Jr. is standing up against, is the censorship. You know, I mean, he's called Biden out directly and said that he said we differ dramatically as far as our opinions about corporate sponsorship of politicians, censorship, and, you know, it's just basically what I wish I could say to Joe Rogan about, you know, these current politicians. I mean, and here's the thing, you guys. I believe 100%, or no, 98.9666%, right? That the U.S. is completely rigged, the political system, right? Only the madman is absolutely certain, and I'm not enough of an egomaniac to believe that I could, you know, absolutely be right about anything. There's always the possibility that you're wrong, you know? But overwhelmingly, I believe that the political system is rigged. And, you know, one of the best practices for determining whether you're right about something is to figure out who are the smartest people, you know, currently and also in history, who is the most based as well. You know, it's a pretty easy read. And then look around at the company you keep. You know, if you believe something and you look around and you're surrounded by a bunch of mouth breather flat earthers and whatever, then you might want to reassess that opinion. You know what I mean? But this opinion, the most intelligent people throughout American history that have commented on it, they agree. So, you know, when I did that check and I'm like, okay, well, I guess kind of weird that there aren't a lot of stupid people that hold this opinion. Right. But anyways, and then, okay, let's evaluate it a little bit. Think this through. And this is all publicly available information. One of the companies that manufactures the machines that are used for voting in the U.S. Admitted to making rigged machines for the CIA to sell to governments overseas. Right? So it's like, how can you claim to hold democracy as sacred, right? It's your responsibility to make these voting machines. How can you claim that you think that democracy is sacred if you're willing to rig a democracy anywhere in the world? And people could say, oh, well, they wouldn't do it in the U.S. because whatever. They obviously don't care about democracy. You know what I mean? When they flaunt that and they're like, we care about democracy and we got above fucking nationalism and blah, blah, blah. They're obviously fucking lying, right? They're rigging democracies in other countries. They've admitted that. So why wouldn't they do it in the U.S.? This is the same thing I say about war. You know, people think that the U.S. only commits atrocities on non-U.S. citizens. Why the fuck would you believe that? If you're willing to kill people for profit or for any other reason, you're just willing to kill people. They don't value American lives any more than they do anybody else's life. It just doesn't make any rational sense. And this is the kind of stuff that is so difficult for people to get their mind around, right? This is the kind of shit that when I say it, people just tune me out. When anyone says it, people tend to just tune you out because it is, you know, the old African proverb, he who speaks the truth has few friends. And I think, you know, what I've learned as I get older and older is that what people actually value is their comfort zone more than anything, right? The number one fear is fear of the unknown. The next is fear of death, right? So when you threaten their illusions, you are basically threatening them with the unknown. And people just delete you. So it's not easy. It's not easy to get people to confront this stuff. And then if you look at trying to evaluate what people actually believe, right? There's something I noticed that is so powerful. Everyone needs to wrap their heads around it, and there's no way that you can accuse me of fabricating it, because you can just go back and look at social media during these time periods and you will see it 100% real. When Donald Trump won the election, right, against Hillary Clinton, the Democrats all said that Russian collusion and they rigged our democracy. The right-wingers all said, how dare you undermine our democracy by making this accusation? Then Biden wins. What happens? The exact same thing in reverse. How dare you? The same people that said it was the, ultimate sin against democracy says, how dare you undermine our democracy? What the fuck is that? Like, how can the same people literally just trade roles it's only 4 years. It's only 4 years. It's not like there's this huge generational gap or something, An 11-year-old girl in 2016 hacked into the voting machines in under 8 minutes. An 11-year-old girl. But you're undermining our democracy if you even suggest that it's rigged? I mean, how stupid is that? It's just absolutely mind-boggling. I mean, it's terrifying, and it's really difficult sometimes for me to continue doing what I do, because it feels so hopeless and pointless sometimes. Because, I know what I'm up against. I understand selective perception. I understand the fact that people can just tune you out if they don't like it. And it makes it all the more frustrating that the things I think are the most important that I put out there are the most universally ignored out of everything that I do. Hit the like button, you guys, please. Support us on Patreon as well. I want to thank Gabby for becoming our 40th patron. If we can make it to 50, we will have more patrons than we have ever had before. And since we're demonetized, I lost my final appeal today, and they said that I can never create another AdSense account. Ever. So lifetime ban is absolutely written in stone at this point. Of course, I'm trying to figure out if we can get around it, but I have definitely been censored and, shadow banned and whatnot. So it's a real thing, it's definitely a real thing. So, we're talking basically about people's selective perception and the effects of propaganda, how obvious the propaganda is and yet how invisible it appears to be to so many people. I don't understand, because if you're trying to get, eaten by the dragon standing behind you, the best possible course of action you could take is to pretend that it's not there. You may be able to avoid the fear momentarily, but you're going to get fucking eaten by the dragon. It's not that hard to understand. Another thing I've realized is that the trust the science people are not even looking at the science. They don't know what the science is. Most of the people that, have told me that how dare you question, that you're an idiot if you question the democratic process in the United States, even though Princeton, right, because they're just so goddamn stupid, Princeton said that the U.S. is not a democracy at all. It's an oligarchy. They did a 5-year study, and that was the conclusion of the best brains on earth, but I'm an idiot for suggesting that maybe it's not a real democracy, right? That makes sense. Totally makes sense, because that's trusting the science. When one of your best Ivy League schools comes to a conclusion and you refuse to accept that conclusion, you're trusting the fucking science. Is that what I'm hearing? Because it doesn't add up. Somehow something seems off. I don't know what it is, but something seems a little bit off. A little bit. And then you look at this other thing that I cannot name, right? Starts with a V. If you look at the actual data at this point, this misinformation that that RFK has been spouting out and putting everyone's lives at danger, that bastard algorithm, you hear me? Not being sarcastic at all. He's getting it from Johns Hopkins and the CDC. It's absolutely factual according to the institutions that have been created to monitor this stuff. They're not even hiding it. But the trust the science people are so brain dead and cowardly that they're just trusting the media. They're not trusting the fucking science. They don't know anything about the science. They don't care about the science. They just care about virtual signaling to their demographic. They care about following whatever narrative they think will get them approval from their friends and family. That's it. It has nothing to do with trusting the science. I mean, and JM asked the question, is RFK gone to the dark side? I don't like the look in his eyes. I really don't. The look, the way, like the picture I used in the thumbnail, he looks evil as hell. But the thing about that is he is the only politician I can find that is actually telling the truth, you know? And people might argue, well, what about Donald Trump? I think that was a trick. I don't think he was sincere at all, and he's definitely slimy as hell. I have looked for dirt on RFK, and there really isn't anything other than people saying he's a conspiracy theorist and a dangerous, you know, misinformant and all this kind of crap. But as far as like really shady stuff, he may have cheated on his wife, which isn't cool. But I'm unable to find like super rich people that don't do that. You know what I mean? It just seems like once men are at a certain point in their wealth, that's just, I mean, again, I'm not condoning it. I'm just saying, you know, I mean, that's just what happens. And there are certainly worse things. But he does seem like the most sincere and honest person. And what I'm suggesting is that there is absolutely no way. I mean, no, let's say it this way. There is a slim fucking sliver of a chance that he could actually become president, right? But I think that what we can do, because we have to do whatever we can, you know? I mean, we're in some serious trouble here. And if we don't somehow change the trajectory of, you know, the culture, and I have to watch my language, you know, but I would say we got to owe the G, you know what I mean? You guys can try to do the math on that and figure out what I mean, but we got to owe the G somehow. And I think that rallying behind this dude and giving him as much support as humanly possible, right? And just forcing people to confront the reality of what he's saying. I mean, let's think about this for a second. Like, there is a consensus amongst the mainstream that people that question the mainstream narrative unthinkingly are idiots, right? That's the story. That's literally the fucking story. I'm pretty sure that like 20 years ago, those same people would have said the opposite thing. It's getting really crazy. It's getting really fucking crazy out there. People have lost their goddamn minds. I mean, you know, no. We have to owe the G. Those are abbreviations for something, and you have to figure out what words if you want to understand what I'm talking about. So, but it's got nothing to do with, I don't know what that is. Owe the G, overdose. That's definitely not it. But yeah, man, I mean, dude is willing to put his life on the line to tell the truth. That's, I mean, and the people that are accusing him of making shit up, for what? You know, misinformation, why? Why would he bother? There's nothing in it for him to spread misinformation. And, you know, if you look at this dude's track record, one of the main things he's devoted his entire career to is trying to get mercury out of fish. I mean, there's no profit in that for anyone. He obviously, you know, you can see that he's done what politicians are actually supposed to do. And, you know, that's a big fucking deal, because show me another one that has actually invested a bunch of time into something they can't make any money off of, and that there's no lobbyists paying them for. You know, there's, you know what I mean? There's none of that in that particular issue. There's also the fact that let's just assume for a second that elections in the United States are actually real. The Kennedy name is the only name in politics that people on both the right and the left, even from generations that were not even alive when this dude, they've heard a couple of his speeches and get the kind of general idea about what he represented. And people loved Kennedy still to this day, on both sides of the aisle. The problem is they really have a lot of people that are on the left and Democrats convinced that anyone that questions the narrative is a dangerous conspiracy theorist and thinking for yourself is a criminal act, and that you should trust the science by ignoring the science and actually looking at the numbers that the CDC provides and that, John Hopkins provides. Apparently that's, I don't understand. And again, I felt like I was getting into dangerous territory even talking about this stuff myself because I cannot afford to get deleted. Yeah, by the way, we definitely appreciate support. You guys can send support to PayPal, Zelle, or cryptocurrency, or however you like. Join our Patreon where you get to access secret streams. This last stream, I think, was probably one of the most interesting. And just as an example of the kind of stuff, the kind of content that we have in there, the latitude of the Great Pyramid is exactly the same as the speed of light to like 9 digits or something. But of course, the ancient Egyptians did not use our system. So obviously it's a coincidence. But if you factor in the fact that the mystery religions that emanated from those pyramids were focused totally on light, that kind of is like, too much to just say, okay, well, that's actually pure coincidence. I think it's actually kind of stupid even to say that at that point. And I offer a answer that is pretty amazing. And so that's the kind of gist of the stuff that is in our Patreon and the secret streams. We try to find, instances of that kind of higher order symmetry that actually stand up to scrutiny and come to terms with it all. So join us there. It's really helpful. It's also, when I am like feeling totally dejected and defeated and I wake up and there's, a surprise in our PayPal, it keeps the channel going because there are definitely days where I'm like, what is the point? The other day, for example, I saw Jordan Peterson talking to this guy about Hermeticism and the Eleusinian mysteries and stuff, and it had like 7 million views or whatever, and they're acting like it was this groundbreaking new information. I made that video 3 years ago, and it got 124 views, or whatever. So, there are definitely days where I'm just like, man, I can't, it's just not good for my mental health. I just gotta stop. But then, I'll get an email from someone explaining why the content's so important to them and some kind of contribution, and that's why I continue to do it. So thank you guys that have supported us for doing so. Yep. So where were we at with this? Yeah, Jordan Peterson, and this was hilarious, right? So I'm looking through all this stuff trying to figure out what's actually going on with RFK because I haven't really paid much attention to him. I don't really care about politics that much. It's usually just all a big farce and a bunch of puppets lying, and who cares? All controlled by the same overlords. It's just absolutely pointless. So I was trying to make sure that I know what I'm talking about and reading all this stuff. And one of the articles in People magazine was like, this horrible interview with this dangerous conspiracy theorist and the far right conservative pundit Jordan Peterson. First of all, he is not far right. Second of all, he's not a pundit. The man is a psychologist. And no, I'm not a super huge fan. But it has been really revelatory to see the smear tactics and mostly to notice that across the board, it's the identical language. What made me move to Ecuador is my mom was here, and then she committed suicide, and I had met my partner while I was here, and I went home to discover that my business partners and roommates had totally cleaned me out. So I was, you know, $20,000 down from where I thought I would be. Basically, everything just suddenly gone. And so I had to do something. So I took what little money I had left and I came to Ecuador. And I have stayed here because the United States is going down in flames. I mean, it's Rome collapsing. You know, it's 200 years appears to be up. So anyways, I don't want to get too far off base. It's raining so hard out there that I can barely hear myself. Let me put my headphones on, maybe. See if that... Oh, yeah, that helps. Is that echo? Do you guys hear an echo? Or is it just... I don't know why you would. I don't have any delay or anything on. People have been telling me there's an echo, though. Let me see if I turn that off. Oh, wow. It is that. No, that's not it. I don't know. Yeah, let me know if there's an echo, because I'm really wondering why in the hell people keep saying that. Yeah, well, I'm thinking about coming back to the U.S. because I'm willing to throw myself on the tracks, so to speak. This whole idea that there is an evolving consciousness that can liberate us from the thralls of corporate ownership, really, is something that I've just been totally invested in since I was a little older than a toddler. So I feel like I could contribute a lot more if I was up there in person. And honestly, this situation with RFK running for president is almost enough to make me want to go back there just to support that. It's not necessarily that I think he could actually get elected, but I think that we need to do everything we can to show that it's not just a bunch of fringy idiots that support him. People magazine said he has like 14% of Joe Biden's voters he's stolen. And they're basically like, so does that mean that people that support Joe Biden are actually, mouth-breathing fucking idiots? I just could not believe it, They're like, the only way this could be possible is that these people are way stupider than we thought they were. Well, could it be possible that maybe people are just figuring out the truth and they are, taking actions that are in accordance with this newfound knowledge? I mean, yeah, and having that name, Kennedy, that's what I was saying before when I got sidetracked. That just the fact that he's a Kennedy, the collective unconscious, that shit resonates. That the last time there was a president that people pretty much unanimously loved was, that was a Kennedy. And so it's also mind-blowing, and in keeping with the regular theme of my content, because this is basically, a metaphysical channel, I guess. Look at the pattern repeating. It's absolutely insane. The last time a Kennedy was elected, we were on the verge of a war that we obviously had gotten involved with for shady for shady reasons. Also, there's a culture totally divided against itself, and psychedelics are blowing up. It's exactly the same scenario as 1960 all over again, but the stakes are higher. The amplitude is greater. But it is absolutely true that history is just an expression of repeating patterns. And it's just mind-blowing to see that, the extent of it. So, yeah. I mean, that's basically the point of this live stream, is just that I feel like we need to all have the courage to rally behind this dude, even if it's pointless. Yeah, I mean, we are way past the point that elected officials can help. But I mean, the thing is, we have to do something. You can't just sit on your hands. You can't just feel defeated. You know, some days I seriously don't even want to get out of bed. It's true. I had such high hopes for the possibility that people were going to snap out of the walking slumber that they had been in, and that we could create something better in the world, 20 years ago. And I have been sorely disappointed by my liberal contemporaries, I guess. People have seriously not lived up to my expectations to an extent that I did not expect. I really thought people had more substance than they have proven to. It's pretty insane to see that just a little bit of fear is enough to just completely I don't even know what to say, corrupt people or whatever. But, we can at least make a lot of noise and try to get our voices heard. And we have at least one politician out there that is willing to take a bullet to attempt to do the right thing. And I think a lot of his motivation is just coming from the fact that he's got a serious vendetta against the deep state that murdered his uncle and that killed his father and maybe also sabotaged his cousin's plane. No, my mic is definitely not muted. Hello? Hello? Yeah, no, it's definitely working. Can anybody else not hear me, or is it just... Let me see. I mean, no, everything's working. It's got to be you. It's not me. Let me see. Yeah, the signal's going to Reaper. Yeah, I can see the bars all moving. Somebody else let me know if have they just like turned off my audio because of the shit that I'm saying in the middle of the stream. Have you thought about Asia? What do you mean? I've thought about Asia, but what, like war with China? I mean, that's definitely something that could happen. Yeah, I don't know. That question's not specific enough. Can it? Oh, okay. All right. But yeah, you guys, I don't want to just keep ranting the same shit over and over again. I mean, I think I've made my point here, that that guy is probably not perfect because no one is perfect. But in terms of people with a platform that are willing to say the things that need to be said, he's standing up against censorship. He is acting in ways that... demonstrate a clear intent to do the right thing for people just because it's right without any profit motive, which is, specifically getting mercury out of fish. And also he was talking about this one CDC scientist who discovered that mercury, because one of the reasons they were told that this form of mercury was safe to inject into children is that it went through the body really fast. But what they actually discovered is that he injected some monkeys and then he checked their brain, and it turned out that all of that mercury had stored in the brains of the monkeys. So you know what I mean? There's no profit motive in it. He has everything to lose. He's rich as hell. He could just go quietly retire, and instead he's out there putting his ass on the line and trying to tell the fucking truth. And it's not just that one issue that I can't specifically name, but he's also calling them out on the endless wars. He's calling them out on censorship, all across the board. He's basically saying the same shit that I would say if I was in his position. So I just wanted to jump on here and encourage everybody to support this guy because you ain't got nothing better to do and no other prospects. There's nobody really out there. It's crazy to watch how sold out all these people are. Tulsi Gabbard You know, I really liked her at first. She was calling out Kamala Harris live in the middle of a debate in front of all these Democrats, which actually turned out to be. You can vote remotely, JM. But you know, she was calling out Kamala Harris on all the evils of her record, and I mean, brutally. And I really respected her for that for a second. But once she turned on the Democrats, all she has done is adopted the right-wing narrative word for word. And that's not, like, if you look at how she used to talk compared to how she's talking now, she's just playing the career politician thing. She has no sincerity at all. She doesn't really, she doesn't believe any of this shit. She's just reading the right-wing script, like, verbatim. It's really, it really bummed me out when she lost the plot. You see that with a lot of people. You know, Tom McDonald, the rapper, he's supposed to be, free thinker. And the last song I heard of his called like Fake Woke. I really liked that title because I felt like, waking up, developing metacognition, and the ability to honestly praise the government and, just to like be fucking awake in the actual sense is definitely nothing that should be demonized. But it has been hijacked and, it's been hijacked. And so I saw that title and I was like, wow, this guy's, pretty cool. But then within, 4 or 5 bars, I'm like, fuck this idiot. Because he's calling himself a free thinker, but then he's just spouting the, like, verbatim, word for word, every talking point of the right-wing narrative. You know what I mean? You're not a free thinker if that's what you're doing. It's just the other side. It's not the truth. It's just the other side's narrative. That's not free thinking. You're literally an echo chamber for the right-wing media. That's not free thinking. And both sides are completely inundated with propaganda. It's just a slightly different flavor. And that's done deliberately to keep all these morons at each other's throats so that they don't unify and realize whose boot is on their neck and what's really happening in the world and how much human potential is being squandered. You know what I mean? That's just, that's not it. But he has figured out that that's how he can sell, not records, but, that's where the money's at, being an echo chamber for zombies. That's how you get famous. You know what I mean? You just keep telling people what they want to hear. And they'll pay you to do that. That's what's wrong with the spiritual industry. It's why there's so much completely toxic, garbage pop culture bullshit just completely inundated everything. Because people will pay you to tell them what they want to hear. Convince me of comforting bullshit. That's like the most profitable thing you can do, and if it is a road to spiritual bypassing, you're that much more profitable. Yeah, it's true that, both, and I've been saying this forever, on the right and the left, it is a mixture of almost 50-50 misinformation and truth. And they have juxtaposed which side gets which misinformation so they can never agree. There's always this clash. It's really the most remarkable thing to me is that people don't figure it out. Because it's not hard. It's really not hard at this point. But I guess just so much exposure to all this indoctrination and being sort of assaulted by fear for decades. They're just scared and maybe weren't that bright to begin with. And you know what I mean? It's just, you're not going to learn what you don't want to know. You're not going to see what you don't want to see. Why that's, not true of some people, there appear to be some people out there that can look at everything and talk about it and, not do this selective perception thing, walking around with a head full of cognitive dissonance. But they're the exception, definitely not the rule. But yeah, you guys, I mean, I feel like this is the first development in quite some time happening on any kind of large scale that gives me any kind of hope that things could start moving in a more positive direction. You know? I mean, say what you want about the guy, but he's putting his life on the line, at least from his point of view. You know, if you don't believe that the government assassinated Kennedy, you're probably an idiot, but but you could be right. I mean, being stupid doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're wrong. So, but that's not the point. Even if he is wrong, he still believes it, and he's willing to take that risk. I mean, can you imagine? They killed your father. They killed your uncle. And maybe his son too. And he's like, I don't fucking care. This shit's not right. You know? Show me another politician that's doing anything. Either not for his ego or for money. You know what I mean? Show me another one. Show me somebody that has a track record of actually acting in the best interest of people. And if you look at specifically what he's gone after, you know, like the Mercury thing, it does actually seem like he's like, okay, what is the worst possible fucking thing that we can actually fix maybe? And then he goes after it. And it actually makes sense. So it actually does seem like he's acting in the best interest of people. And so why would a person with a history like that just suddenly decide that he's just gonna, risk his life for something that isn't even true just because he wants to run his mouth or something? I mean, yeah, I mean, this guy, Steve, I don't really think that's just bullshit. They kill them for doing what he's doing. And you say he's training for this his whole life because you just believe conspiracy theories and that you think that it's, totally under control and whatnot. And for the most part, I agree. But you can't answer the who benefits. Who benefits from, who is he working for trying to expose all these people? And it's kind of like, when people suggest that the psychedelic revolution was sponsored by the CIA, okay, good. Let's give the CIA more money then. It's completely stupid and it's not true. But even if it is true, so what? I don't care if he's been training for this his whole life. He's saying the shit that needs to be said, period, end of story. Who cares? Of course he's an elite. But show me another one that is actually telling the truth about this stuff. So, it's people that supported Donald Trump and said that he went rogue. He would have been dead. He wasn't really rogue. Trump, I can agree with what you're saying. But this guy's putting his ass on the line for absolutely nothing. I mean, and again, look at his record. He's actually taken up causes that help people when there's no money in it for him. So, you got to look at the evidence. Yeah, well, I mean, JM, think about the mindlessness of what you just said there. If he was running for the other party, you would vote for him. So it doesn't matter if he's right, but you've been indoctrinated into one side or the other. So that's completely the whole point of my existence. To remove the thinking that you just demonstrated in the chat from the face of the fucking planet. That is literally the problem. What you just said is literally why the United States is fucked and destroying itself. Until you can transcend that thinking, you are the problem. You literally are the walking, breathing problem. That is just completely insane. You're just indoctrinated. If he was running for the other side, I would vote for him in a second. You really think that the same people don't own both sides of the Republican and Democratic Party? What the fuck is in your water? You know what I mean? There's nothing sane about that. Completely wrong. You couldn't be more wrong. And until you can overcome that, we're all fucked, basically. Yeah, I mean, sure, don't vote. And I'm not saying that voting, I've been saying this whole live stream that voting for any of these people is probably not going to help. But what we can do is their amplify their message. You know what I mean? He's the only person out there that has a massive platform that is willing to stand up for them. You know, and of course, nobody is perfect, but the main evils that we are threatened with are censorship and being fucking poisoned, right? So, I mean, that's what I'm saying. You have to do something, and as far as I can tell, at the current moment, there is nothing else happening that is worth our time. But yeah, man, if you're devoted to one party or the other, you're a relic and what is wrong with the world? Like, people have got to stop doing that. It's just, you're just being played, and most people know it and still will play along with it. Let's just stop it. Don't do that. Don't do that. All right, you guys, I gotta go. I'm starving. I hope something in this light stream was helpful for someone somewhere. And I appreciate your support, and I'm probably actually going to do another stream tonight. Maybe just music and conversation or something. So thank you all so much. Please support us on Patreon, or there are options in the chat if you would like to keep free thinking people in social media. You have to support us when you find us. Otherwise, we will all disappear. Cheers.